Here's a number that's going to completely change how you think about money. $1,825. That's it. That's literally all it takes per year to build serious, life-changing wealth. And if you're watching this video right now, you almost certainly already have it. But here's the thing. Most people spend that money every single year without ever realizing it. They spend it on things they don't remember. Things they don't even enjoy. Tiny purchases that disappear into the fog of a Tuesday afternoon. And then they wonder, genuinely wonder, why they're still broke at 35, at 45, at 55. You know what the insane part is? The math on this is so brutally simple, so almost offensively straightforward, that when I first saw it laid out, I actually got a little angry. Not at the math, at myself. Because I'd been doing the wrong thing for years when the answer was sitting right there in front of me the entire time. This video is going to show you exactly what happens when you save just $5 a day, and where that money goes, and how it multiplies, and what your life looks like 10, 20, 30 years from now if you start today versus if you wait even one more month. I'm also going to show you the psychological traps that make this feel impossible, even though it isn't. And I'm going to break down the exact mechanics of how small money turns into generational wealth, step by step, so that by the end of this video, you're not just inspired, you actually understand the system. Because inspiration without understanding doesn't last. But when you actually get how this works at a deep level, it changes your behavior permanently. So stay with me. This is going to be worth every minute. Let's start with something fundamental. Most people were never taught how money actually grows. They were told to save money, like saving is the goal. Like putting cash in a jar under your mattress is somehow going to make you wealthy. It won't, and that's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is something completely different. Something that has made ordinary people with ordinary incomes extraordinarily wealthy over time. And it has one name: compound growth. Here's the concept in the simplest possible terms. When your money earns a return, whether that's through investments, assets, or anything that appreciates in value, you don't just earn on the original amount. You start earning on the returns too. And then you earn on the returns of the returns. And it keeps going. It feeds on itself. It accelerates. The longer it runs, the faster it moves. It doesn't grow in a straight line. It grows on a curve. And that curve eventually goes nearly vertical. Let me make this real for you. $5 a day is $150 a month. $1,825 a year. Now, let's say you invest that $1,825 every single year. And let's say it earns an average annual return of 10%, which, by the way, is roughly what broad market index funds have returned historically over long time periods. Not every year. Some years are terrible. Some years are incredible. But averaged out over decades, 10% is a reasonable, historically grounded number. What happens to your money? After 10 years, you haven't just saved $18,250. You have somewhere around $31,000. You earned over $12,000 in growth on top of what you put in. After 20 years, you're looking at roughly $115,000. From $5 a day. You contributed about $36,500 total, and you now have more than triple that. After 30 years? This is where it gets genuinely wild. You're sitting at somewhere around $350,000. You put in about $54,750 total over 3 decades. The market did the rest. The growth now dwarfs what you actually contributed. After 40 years? Over $1 million. From $5 a day. And here is the part that most people completely miss. The part that makes this so much more than just a save your coffee money gimmick. The growth in the last 10 years of that 40-year period is more than the growth in the first 30 years combined. Let that sink in. The money doesn't just grow. It accelerates. The longer it runs, the more violently it compounds. Which means time isn't just important in this equation. Time is the engine. Time is the entire mechanism. The money is almost secondary. And this is where most people make a fatal mistake. They wait. They say, I'll start when I have more money. Or, I'll start when things are more stable. Or, I'll start after this thing happens. And every month they wait, they're not just delaying the start. They're cutting off the tail end of the curve. They're removing the most powerful years. The years when the money really flies. Now, I already know what some of you are thinking. I don't have $5 a day to spare. Or maybe, I make decent money but there's never anything left over at the end of the month. And I want to address this seriously, because I'm not going to just wave it away and tell you to cut out your morning coffee like every other generic personal finance video on the internet. Here's what I actually believe about this. For most people in most situations, the $5 isn't the problem. The system is the problem. Think about how most people handle money. Money comes in, they pay their bills, they live their life, they buy things, they pay for experiences, they handle emergencies, and then, whatever's left at the end of the month, if anything, goes toward savings. This is called paying yourself last. And it almost never works. Because there is almost never anything left. Life expands to fill the space. Spending finds a way to use whatever's available. It's not a willpower problem. It's a structural problem. The solution is to flip the order. Before you do anything else, before you buy a single thing, you move your savings first. The moment money hits your account, $5 goes somewhere else. Immediately. Automatically. You don't see it. You don't feel it. You don't make a decision about it. It's just gone. And then you live on what's left. This sounds small and almost embarrassingly simple, but it is genuinely one of the most powerful behavioral changes you can make. Because it works with your psychology instead of against it. Here's why. Every decision you make about money is subject to what psychologists call present bias. The deeply human tendency to overvalue things in the present moment compared to things in the future. A coffee right now feels real and satisfying and immediate. A retirement account 30 years from now feels theoretical and distant and frankly a little boring. But when saving is automatic, when the system does it for you before your brain even gets involved, you sidestep the whole battle. The money is already gone before present bias can work on it. You never had it to spend in the first place. There's a second psychological trap worth naming here, and it's subtler. It's called lifestyle inflation. As people earn more, they spend more. Not just on necessities, on everything. The apartment gets nicer. The car gets newer. The vacations get fancier. And somehow, no matter how much their income grows, the amount left over for saving stays roughly the same, which is usually almost nothing. The $5 a day framework is powerful because it creates a fixed commitment that doesn't expand with your lifestyle. You lock it in. You automate it. And then as your income grows over time, you add to it, but you never remove the original commie. Okay, so you've automated $5 a day. You've got $150 a month moving somewhere automatically. Now what? This is the part that actually determines whether your money just sits there slowly losing value to inflation, or whether it starts compounding aggressively. Let's talk about what your options look like. The first and most important concept here is that idle money loses value. This isn't a philosophical statement. It's mathematics. Inflation, the gradual increase in the cost of everything, has historically averaged somewhere around 2 to 3% per year. That means if your money is sitting in a standard savings account earning close to nothing, you're not actually keeping your money. You're slowly losing it. The numbers might stay the same, but what those numbers can buy is shrinking every single year. So step 1 is, your $5 a day savings cannot just sit. It has to be deployed. Now, the specifics of where to deploy it depend on your situation, your country, and your goals, and I'm not here to give you personalized financial advice. What I want to do is explain the logic of how deployed money compounds, so you understand the mechanism regardless of the specific vehicle. The fundamental idea is this. When you own a piece of something productive, whether that's a business, a portfolio of businesses, real estate, or any other asset that generates returns, your money is working for you. It's not just sitting there. It's participating in economic growth, generating returns, and those returns get added back in and start generating their own returns. The reason broad market index funds are so commonly recommended for this kind of long-term wealth building is that they offer something almost miraculous. Easy access to ownership in hundreds or thousands of companies at once, with very low costs, and historically strong long-term returns. You're not betting on one company. You're betting on the overall growth of the economy, which, over long periods, has always gone up. But here's the crucial thing to understand about the mechanism of compounding in a growth vehicle. In the early years, the growth feels almost disappointingly slow. You put in $150 a month. A year passes. You've contributed $1,825. Your account might show $2,000, or $2,100. You feel like you're barely moving. This phase is where most people lose faith and quit. But this is exactly the phase you have to survive. Because what's happening underneath the surface is not nothing, it's everything. You're building the base. You're creating the foundation that the exponential curve will eventually launch off of. Think of it like planting a tree. In year 1, you have a tiny seedling. It doesn't look like much. In year 5, you have a small tree. Still not that impressive. But by year 15, 20, 25, the tree is enormous. And it's growing faster every year, because trees don't grow linearly either. Now let's talk about how you can significantly accelerate this process. Because $5 a day is the starting point, but there are several variables in the compounding equation that you can actually influence. Variable 1. The amount. This is the most obvious one. $5 a day is the floor. As your income grows, through raises, promotions, side income, anything, you can increase your automatic contribution without changing your lifestyle at all. If you get a $200 a month raise, you're not used to having that money. The moment you automate it into your investment account, you'll never miss it. The goal isn't to max out some arbitrary number. The goal is to gradually increase the percentage of your income that gets deployed before it has a chance to become lifestyle. Some people call this a savings rate. And research consistently shows that your savings rate is the single biggest predictor of long-term wealth, more than your income, more than your investment choices. Variable 2. The return rate. A 1% difference in annual returns sounds tiny. It is not tiny. Over 30 years, the difference between 9% and 10% annual returns on consistent contributions is tens of thousands of dollars. Over 40 years, it can be over $100,000. This means the costs associated with your investments matter enormously. High-fee funds, for example, might charge 1% or even 2% annually. That fee compounds against you the same way returns compound for you. Over decades, even a 1% annual fee can eat 20 to 25% of your final portfolio value. This is why low-cost, broadly diversified investment options have become so popular. They minimize the drag on your returns and let more of your money stay in the compounding engine. Variable 3. Time. We've talked about this, but it bears repeating in this context because it's the most powerful lever you have. Starting at 22 instead of 32 isn't just 10 more years of saving. It's potentially 200 to 300% more final wealth, because of where you are on the compounding curve. If you're watching this and you're young, this is your massive, irreplaceable advantage. You don't have more money than older people. You might have less, but you have more time, and in the compounding equation, time beats capital at almost every stage. If you're watching this and you're older, the answer isn't despair. The answer is urgency. Starting now still produces dramatically better outcomes than starting in 5 years. The curve is still there. You're just starting on a steeper part of it, which means consistency becomes even more critical. I want to shift gears for a minute, because this video isn't just about math. It's about something deeper. There's a version of this $5 a day story that's purely mechanical. You save, you invest, you wait, you get rich. Done. And that version is true. But it misses something really important about what happens to a person who builds this habit and maintains it over years and decades. Let me describe something I think of as financial quiet. Most people live in a state of low-level financial anxiety almost all the time. They don't think of it as anxiety, necessarily. It's just background noise. The slight tension when the credit card bill comes. The vague stress every time an unexpected expense appears. The uncomfortable calculations that happen whenever someone suggests a restaurant or a trip. The feeling of being one bad month away from serious trouble. This noise is so constant for so many people that they don't even notice it anymore. It's just the baseline. But here's what happens as you build wealth over time, even slowly, even incrementally. The noise starts to fade. Not all at once. Not dramatically. Just, gradually, the cushion grows. The buffer between you and disaster expands. The number of months you could survive a job loss without catastrophe goes from 0 to 1, then to 3, then to 12, then to indefinite. And as that happens, something changes in you. Not just financially, psychologically, behaviorally. You start making decisions differently. When you have no financial cushion, almost every decision gets filtered through fear. Can I afford this? What if something goes wrong? You take the safer job, not the more interesting one. You stay in the bad situation because the risk of leaving feels too high. You don't negotiate for a raise because you need the paycheck too badly to risk anything. But when you have a growing foundation, when you know that you have assets working for you, that your wealth is compounding in the background, that fear starts to lose its grip. You can afford to take more calculated risks. You can afford to walk away from things that aren't working. You can afford to be patient, to wait for the right opportunity instead of jumping at the first available one. Ironically, having money makes you better at making money. Not because wealthy people are smarter, but because they're making decisions from a position of security instead of a position of fear. And decisions made from security are almost always better than decisions made from desperation. There's another dimension to this that almost never gets talked about. And it's the relationship between money and time. We think of wealth as financial. But the deepest form of wealth is temporal. It's having control over how you spend your hours. Most people trade their time for money in a more or less fixed arrangement. You show up, you do the work, you get paid. And that's fine, but it means your time isn't truly yours. Before I wrap this up, I need to talk about the things that destroy compound growth. Because knowing how to build wealth is only half of it. Knowing what stops it is equally important. Enemy 1. Debt with interest. Debt that charges you interest is compounding working against you. If you're paying 20% interest on credit card balances, for example, that interest is compounding in the same way your investments would. Except it's compounding against you. Every dollar you have tied up in high-interest debt is a dollar that can't compound for you, and it's actively generating negative returns. Getting out of high-interest debt isn't a distraction from wealth building. It is wealth building. The math is the same, just in reverse. Enemy 2. Withdrawing early. One of the most damaging things you can do to your compounding engine is rate it. Even once. Even for something that seems important. When you pull money out of a growing investment, you don't just lose that money, you lose every dollar that money would have generated for the rest of the compounding period. You're removing not just the principal but all of its future growth. This is why building a separate emergency fund, money that is deliberately not invested, just sitting somewhere accessible, is so important. It protects your compounding pool from life's inevitable emergencies. Enemy 3. Lifestyle inflation without proportional saving increases. As I mentioned earlier, when income rises and saving rate doesn't, you end up running faster to stay in place. The goal is to increase your savings rate in proportion to your income growth. Not every dollar of new income, but a meaningful percentage. This is how people with modest incomes still build significant wealth, while people with high incomes who don't manage this well end up with almost nothing. Enemy 4. Waiting for perfect. The perfect investment. The perfect moment. The perfect amount. None of these exist, and the pursuit of them is one of the most effective wealth destroyers there is, because it paralyzes action. An imperfect plan started today will almost always outperform a perfect plan started 5 years from now, because of where compounding kicks in on the curve. Done is better than perfect. Started is better than planned. Imperfect and consistent beats perfect and never. Here's where we land. Wealth isn't about windfalls. It isn't about luck. It isn't about having a high-paying job or coming from money or getting in on the right investment at exactly the right time. It's about understanding a mechanism, compounding, and then being relentlessly consistent in feeding that mechanism over a long period of time. Starting small if you have to. Automating so you don't rely on willpower. Increasing the contribution as you grow. Leaving it alone when markets get scary. Protecting it from debt and early withdrawals. And letting time do the work that no amount of hustle or intelligence can replicate. $5 a day is not a hack. It's not a trick. It's not a shortcut to anything. It's a commitment. A decision that this thing, your financial future, your freedom, your time, matters enough to protect $5 a day and let it compound into something that changes your life. Most people will watch this video and feel something. And then they'll close the tab and nothing will change. A smaller number of people will actually do the thing. Will actually set up the automation today. Will actually start with $5, even if they feel like it's embarrassing, even if they feel like it's too small, even if they feel like they should be further along by now. Those are the people who, in 20 years, will look back and identify this moment, or a moment very much like this one, as the one where everything started to shift. The math doesn't care how you feel about it. It just runs. And it runs relentlessly in favor of whoever starts the clock. Start the clock.